Okay, my outstanding friends, Roger once again. I'm really excited. Somebody just sent me this. I haven't looked at it whatsoever, and we're going to go through it together. It's called Velikovsky Reconsidered. Now, I wrote a book about Velikovsky. I never really told anybody about it until just recently. I'd mentioned it a little bit here and there. And because now I can virtually prove all the things he said, and it's come around to where we're reconsidering what Velikovsky said. And I'm having people say to me, "Oh, I never heard that guy's name before." Until you mentioned it. Well, that's right, because they destroyed him, just like they destroy everybody that does the real research that upends the nonsense that they've been feeding us and forcing you to pay, and then regurgitate the same nonsense to the same next people. And if you talk against them, they destroy your life. So they really have got you under their thumb like unbelievable. But I'm not under anybody's thumb. I don't care about them. This was a book I wrote about 5-6 years ago, and I never told anybody about it. And the problem was, I was talking about mud fossils. I was upset because I was treated just the way Velikovsky was. And so I called it minds in collision. He wrote worlds in collision. Well, mine is minds in collision, and they are. Their minds are in collision with reality, and they cannot accept it, and they are the ones that are the academic, supposedly the teachers, the scientists, the investigators, the reporters, the dig deepers, and that's just not happening whatsoever, and right across the board. Look at this. I just look up David Talbot, who is he is a researcher into Velikovsky. Listen to what they say right off the top. David Talbot, a self-taught comparative mythologist and longtime promoter of neo-Velikovskyan nonsense. Inspired by Immanuel Velikovsky, Talbot uses ancient mythology tales as evidence, the so-called proof, that Earth was at once time in orbit around Saturn within recent human memory, no less, and a litany of other equally ridiculous claims. Now, I don't know about this in orbit around Saturn, but I can tell you what, Venus is 3,500 years old, according to what Velikovsky came. These people are just so obviously slanted, it's unbelievable. So we're going to go into this together, and it appears that the Talbot brothers, he's talking about Talbot, respectively David and Stephen Talbot. Magazine was published in Portland, Oregon, which is also the home of the Talbot brothers. Now, let's see what they have to say here about Velikovsky. I'm pretty familiar with him. Like I said, I wrote a book about him. And everything, he went, just before we start, he went to every single source of information. This guy was no fool. He was a contemporary of Einstein. They knew each other. He was a scholar. He was a PhD. He was all kinds of things. And his book was on the bestseller list for, I believe it was 11 weeks in a row. And the academics were so pissed off that they told the publisher that they didn't take it off the bookshelves. They'd never sell another book to anybody in academia. And they took it off the bookshelves. He got it to be able to get through another publisher somewhere. But by that time, he was so destroyed that it just became, they just continue to mock him and he destroyed his life, basically destroyed him, 100%. And Einstein died with his book on his bed. That's what they say, or it was open and he was reading Velikovsky when he died. Now, I don't know if I said this, but it says Electric Universe Eyes, and I appreciate it very much. And again, they're using Fair Use Act. Same thing with me. I'm just showing what is being talked about and trying to add something to it. I'm not trying to steal anything, so that's what the whole thing is about. Now, let's just all do this together and try to learn what the heck is going on with our lives and what was written and what we can make of it now with the new mud fossil research. Because since the mud fossils changed everything, absolutely everything. So let's see, because now we can show things that this other guy said, his tales and this Velikovsky nonsense and all these, slanderous sounding words. Well, now we have the proof to show that there was a giant flood, there was all kinds of creatures drowned, and they were giants, just the kind of things they said, and it looks like it was 3,500 years ago, according to every source on the planet. Every culture had the same story. these gigantic, it was almost an impact of Venus, because Venus was just born. Where it came from, I don't know. They say it came from the feared god Jupiter, and it came out as a fiery comet and almost hit Earth. Now, I understand the fields that surround particles, and they say the same fields surround us. That's why you see all those magnetic field lines they show, that we have that field, and we push to shove. And if a comet came in real close to us, it would create enormous amounts of energy. I show the glow of everything, and that's what glow is energy impact. It says everywhere in the world said the Earth almost caught fire. Well, it did catch fire almost a lot of places, and the oceans boiled because of the impact of that magnetic crush, and there was huge amounts of electrical impacts. And they were talking about the sun standing still, whether that was the Earth stopped rotating for a second because it was so impacted. I don't know. Venus spins backwards. It's the only one that spins backwards in our solar system, and it is 800 and something degrees. And that's because of the scrub through the space. Velikovsky knew all these things, and everybody rejected him, destroyed him. So let's see what this has to say, because this is really exciting stuff for me. So I'm going to drag this out a little bit, I'm sure, but I'm going to have a good time doing it.
And today, I'm going to read from the book, Velikovsky Reconsidered, by the editors of Pensée, editor Stephen L. Talbot, associate editors Louis M. Greenberg, Ralph E. Juergens, William Mullen, C.J. Ransom, and Lynn E. Rose. Preface: Collisions and Upheavals, a fragmentary scenario based on Velikovsky's Worlds in Collision and Earth in Upheaval. Immanuel Velikovsky manifests a strong distaste for summaries and popularizations of his books. In the past, many erroneous criticisms of his work have been based upon such popularizations, the critics never having studied his books. And indeed, these books, detailed in their arguments and exhaustive in their documentation, do not...
You hear what he said? Exhaustive in their documentation. Let me see if I can get captions on here to come out in English. Hold on. All right, I can't do anything about the subtitles, so I can't put any closed captions on there. Now, what I am going to do, though, is turn it up real loud, because I have a hard time hearing. My ears are not good. And this is a little bit muffly sounding to me, but I hope you'll be able to get something out of it. Now, here we go. This is Velikovsky Reconsidered, and it appears that the Talbots, well, I don't know who wrote this, but he's attributing a lot of work to the Talbot brothers.
Felt it desirable to reacquaint readers with the flow of events described in his revolutionary reconstruction of recent solar system history. The evidence, amassed in Worlds in Collision and Earth in Upheaval, is not presented here, and to those who have not read these works, the events must necessarily appear fanciful and insupportable. This difficulty can be remedied, of course, only by direct reference to the scholarly, evidential texts of Velikovsky himself. The following brief sketch was prepared entirely without Velikovsky's help. The serious student and scholar should resort to a careful and intensive reading of Worlds in Collision and Earth in Upheaval. Global cataclysms fundamentally altered the face of our planet more than once in historical times. The terrestrial axis shifted. Earth fled from its established orbit. The magnetic poles reversed. In great convulsions, the seas emptied onto continents, the planet's crust folded, and volcanoes erupted into mountain chains.
It's concussion. It's the other Venus coming close to Earth, concussing its atmosphere against ours, which is just like an absolute devastating blow. And it would create a lot of heat, and anything that was mobile, like waters, would just be piled up in huge mountains and flow away from this impact.
Lava flows up to a mile thick.
The Earth's whole entire structure would be wiggled and crushed as much as it could possibly withstand, and that would obviously cause all of these gushing things from within inside the earth and create a hell of a lot of heat inside the earth. And the Quran says that the waters boiled when they came out of the earth, and that's it. Velikovsky says the same thing, and I think they say that everywhere in the world.
Spilled out over vast areas of the Earth's surface. Climates changed suddenly, ice settling over lush vegetation, while green meadows and forests were transformed into deserts. In a few awful moments, civilizations collapsed. Species were exterminated into continental sweeps of mud, rock, and sea. Tidal waves crushed even the largest beasts, tossing their bones into tangled heaps in the valleys and rock fissures.
This is when the mud fossils started. They all became soaked in these areas now, whether they turned into little spots of huge watery substances which had a lot of salts and acids and so, because they're different everywhere on the earth. So it depended upon, because my whole area is 100% saturated with mud fossils. 100%. They're all rocks like this, only they are now, they were bones and body parts, and my goose, Augustus, see this feather pattern in the back? Everything can change from biology into solid stone, basalts and limestone and igneous rocks and all the metamorphic and all that. And when they erode, they can turn into sediments. Yes, absolutely, sedimentary rock. However, this huge flood appeared to boil these creatures into a state where they could preserve very well after the nucleophilic substitution invaded their boiled bodies and stabilized them, and they came out rocks. And a lot of them came out in all kind of different areas, different look to them. It depends on, there was a lot of salts, a lot of acids. I've shown all this stuff so many times. Here goes.
Preserved beneath mountains of sediment. The mammoths of Siberia were instantly frozen and buried. Surviving generations recorded these events by every means available, in myths and legends, temples and monuments to the...
I just want to mention something. If you've ever seen, they have found these creatures just literally standing there and frozen. And I believe I've seen that now.
The planetary gods, precise charts of the heavens, sacrificial rites, astrological canons, detailed records of planetary movements, and tragic lamentations amid fallen cities and destroyed institutions. All is ruin. Aware of a link between the circuit of heavenly bodies and the catastrophic ruin of previous generations, the ancients ceaselessly watched the planetary movements. Their traditions recalled that when old epochs dissolved, the new age, or sun, was marked by different celestial paths. Astronomers and seers diligently watched for any change which might augur approaching destruction and the end of an age. Prior to the second millennium BC, ancient Hindu records spoke of 4 visible planets, excluding Venus. Babylonians, meticulous in their observations, likewise failed to report Venus. But long before 1500 BC, Jupiter, for centuries chief among the deities, shattered the serenity of the skies. A brilliant, fiery object, expelled from that planet.
Okay, this is Electric Universe Eyes. This is Velikovsky Reconsidered. And apparently in 1976 they were talking about it. However, I studied Velikovsky very, very closely, and I wrote a book about him too. It was called Minds in Collision. Mudfossils, Velikovsky, and Minds in Collision. And that was 5-6 years ago, because of the absolute rejection of academia to anything that upset their world. And this is a real upsetter. But this also shows how mud fossils were formed, because this event that he's going to be talking about in a second here, I'm just going to jump in at about 4 minutes into it, where Venus passes so close to Earth that it actually literally boiled the oceans and flooded the Earth and fractured fabric of the earth and cause all kind of volcanoes and all kinds of nightmarish situation on the earth. And this was recorded in every culture. And it's a lot. Most of them didn't survive it. So listen to this now. So don't forget, Electric Universe Eyes, Velikovsky Reconsidered. Here goes.
The end of an age. Prior to the second millennium BC, ancient Hindu records spoke of 4 visible planets, excluding Venus. Babylonians, meticulous in their observations, likewise failed to report Venus.
So don't forget now, we're saying Venus literally did not exist. This is 3,500 years ago. No Venus.
But long before 1500 BC, Jupiter, for centuries chief among the deities, shattered the serenity of the skies. A brilliant, fiery object, expelled from that planet, entered upon a long elliptical orbit around...
I just want to tell you something. You know Jupiter. You know about the giant red spot. I believe it's basically very close to the size of Venus. It could literally be a birth canal. I mean, they say it popped right out of Venus. And these gods could give birth to things on their own. They didn't even need to have any kind of intimate contact. Now, listen to this now.
On the sun. The feared god Jupiter had given birth to the comet and protoplanet Venus. Terrified, men watched the bright torch of heaven as it traversed its elongated orbit, menacing the Earth. Venus, a Chinese astronomical text recalls, spanned the heavens, rivaling the sun in brightness. Quote, "The brilliant light of Venus," records an ancient rabbinical source, blazes from one end of the cosmos to the other. The fears of the Star Watchers were justified.
Now, I want to tell you something. The reason it blazed so much then was because it was, first of all, brand new. Second of all, it's spinning in reverse. We're all spinning as we should with the right-hand rule. This is spinning backwards. Equate this to rolling down a street with your tires. So you're rolling this way down the street with your tires and going that way. Well, guess what? If you're going that way and your tires are going this way, just think of how hot your tires are going to get. That's exactly what's happening, because we are completely saturated around us with particles that are scrubbing on our atmosphere. Same thing happening there, the same thing on the sun. Our ionosphere out here is 2,700 degrees. The sun, which is 100 degrees on the Earth's surface. Well, how did it get so hot out here? It's because we're scrubbing our particles of our atmosphere against all the particles that are in space, which they used to call the ether back when they knew about the planets and the solar system, and how there is what they call perturbations. There's all kinds of changes going on. That's why they were so interested in the celestial paths, because Venus almost hit us. Apparently it destroyed Mars. It was going to come back again and again and again, and they were worried about what was going to happen the next time, obviously, after having something like this happen. Now, let me just go back a little bit so that we don't miss anything. All right, here we go.
As it traversed its elongated orbit, menacing the Earth. Venus, a Chinese astronomical text recalls, spanned the heavens, rivaling the sun in brightness. Quote, "The brilliant light of Venus," records an ancient rabbinical source, blazes from one end of the cosmos to the other. The fears of the Star Watchers were justified. As Venus arched away from one perihelion passage during the middle of the second millennium BC, the Earth approached this intruder, entering first the outer reaches of its cometary tail. A rusty ferruginous dust filtered down upon the globe, imparting a bloody hue to the land and sea. The fine pigment...
All right, this is all the red ferrous oxides, which literally is, as far as I can determine, is blood.
Chafed human skin, and men were overcome by sickness. Those who sought to drink could not. Rivers stank from the rotting carcass of fish, and men dug desperately for water uncontaminated by the alien dust. Quote, "Plague is throughout the land. Blood is everywhere,"
Blood
bewailed
is
the Egyptian Epure. Quote, "Men shrink from tasting. Human beings thirst after water. That is our water. That is our happiness. What shall we do in respect thereof? All is ruin. As recalled by the Babylonians, the blood of the celestial monster Tiamat poured out over the world. But as the earth's path carried it ever more deeply into the comet's tail, the rain of particles grew steadily more coarse and perilous. Soon a great hail of gravel pelted the earth.
All right, I want to talk about this now. First we have the blood. Now we have the gravel, which I'm going to explain to you what these things represent. So listen to it carefully.
Quote, "There was hail, and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation." So recorded the author of Exodus.
Let me just tell you what my thinking could possibly be. I know it sounds absolutely insane, but let's say Jupiter gave birth to Venus in a vaginal way, and Venus was literally a creature that, as far as I can determine, everything that I've ever found so far has a biological origin. So it's a baby literally coming through the birth canal out into the solar system through the red spot, and the blood is the afterbirth blood. The chunks of stone are the umbilical cord being stripped away and breaking away, and then eventually they are getting their way through the Exodus. The manna will fall, and manna could be the placenta. Okay, I know it sounds insane.
Fleeing from the torrent of meteorites, men abandoned their livestock to the Holocaust. Fields of grain which fed great cities perished. Cried Ipuwer, quote, "No fruits, no herbs are found. That has perished which yesterday was seen. The land is left to its weariness like the cutting of flax." These things happened, say the Mexican annals of Cuautitlan, when the sky, quote, "rained not water but fire and red-hot stones." As our planet plunged still deeper into the comet's tail, hydrocarbon gases enveloped the Earth, exploding in bursts of fire in the sky. Unignited trains of petroleum poured onto the planet.
That's nothing more than blood. Petroleum is nothing more than blood.
Sinking into the surface and floating on the seas. From Siberia to the Caucasus to the Arabian desert, great spills of naphtha burned for years, their billows of smoke lending a dark shroud for human despair. Our planet was pursuing a near-collision course with the massive comet's head. Suddenly, caught in an invisible grip, the Earth rocked violently, its axis tilted.
That's the impact of the magnetic fields. They are very similar sizes, and each one of them has a field surrounding it like this. And if you look up the Casimir effect, anything that comes close to each other will oppose it. And it will oppose it and create energy. And the energy is a glow. And the glow is the magnetic impulse. Now, when you have tons of particles, which is like planets, you're going to have all kinds of magnetic discharges and violent shaking and crushing and all kinds of destruction on the surface. Everything, which is exactly what they're talking about. And in addition to that, because it was carrying the blood and the umbilical cord and the placenta and everything, it was because it was born, all of that stuff is raining down at the same time as the impact is occurring.
In a single convulsed moment, cities were laid waste, great buildings of stone leveled, and populations decimated. Quote, "The towns are destroyed. Upper Egypt has become waste. All is ruin. The residence is overturned in a minute." Around the world, oceans rushed over mountains and poured into continental basins. Rivers flowed upward. Islands sank into the sea. Displaced strata crashed together, while the shifting earth generated a global hurricane which destroyed forests and swept away the dwellings of men. In China, the Emperor Yahoo spoke of waters which, quote, overtopped the great heights, threatening the heavens with their floods. Decades of labor were required to drain the valleys of the mainland. Arabia was transformed into a desert by the same paroxysms which may have dropped the legendary Atlantis beneath the ocean west of Gibraltar.
No, it wasn't west of Gibraltar. It was the Eye of the Sahara. And yes, it did drop it into the ocean. And right in front of the Eye of the Sahara, if you go straight down, you'll see where everything ran out, and you're going to see a straits. That's where Atlantis was. It wasn't the Straits of Gibraltar. It was the Straits of Atlantis.
With dulled senses, survivors lay in a trance for days, choking in the smoky air. The tilting axis left a portion of the world in protracted darkness, another in extended day. From the Americas to Europe to the Middle East, records tell of darkness persisting for several days. On the edge of the darkness, the peoples of Iran witnessed a threefold night and a threefold day. Chinese sources speak of a holocaust during which the sun did not set for many days, and the land was aflame. Peoples and nations everywhere, uprooted by disaster, wandered from their homelands. Celestial Dragon. Led by Moses, the Israelites fled the devastation which brought Egypt's Middle Kingdom to an end.
All right, I'm going to stop here for 1 second. They've been trying to destroy him 25 years ago, 50 years ago, 70 years ago, and he's still destroyed now. Because I've tried to discuss these kind of things with anybody in academia or anybody that considers them to be intellectual or intelligent of any degree, and they just laugh. They think I'm an idiot for talking about somebody that could believe this stuff. Well, if you believe all of the different cultures in the world that wrote the same story, then I don't think you're an idiot. I think you're probably onto something that's pretty valid. And now that we have the evidence, the mud fossil supports every single word that's said. They're everywhere around the world, and it was a gigantic flood, and it appears that it boiled these creatures to a point where they became preserved very easily with the nucleophilic substitution, and they're literally everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere. And they're not deep in the earth. They're on the top of the earth. I just pick them up off the earth. I didn't dig for any, well, a couple of them, but very few. I have stone walls around my property. I have hundreds of them, probably thousands, that can be easily identified. And I have mine DNA tested, and some of them CAT scanned, and the whole 9 yards. So we're not talking about anything that is ridiculous and nonsensical and silly, which is exactly what they still say about Velikovsky. And like I said, I wrote a book about him, and I will not let that rest. Sooner or later, he'll be vindicated, and he is my hero, and I'll see that that's going to happen. I can guarantee you that. Okay, my friends, Roger once again. This is one of those things that nobody thinks about. They open the refrigerator door every day. They get their things out, and everything's cool. Now, what does that mean? Well, how did that all happen? There was no refrigerators 100 years ago. Well, this guy Harrison was a typesetter, apparently, and he was wiping down some type one day using ether, and he discovered that the ether takes the heat away from his hands. His hands were getting cold. So he said, that's interesting. And well, I'm going to play this. Listen to what it has to say.
As it evaporates. Applying this principle, he successfully obtained a patent for a practical vapor compression refrigeration system using ether.
All right, you hear what she said? A compression system using ether. Well, so what? Big deal, you compress the ether. What's that mean? Well, here's the whole story in a refrigerator. You've got a compressor, and a compressor means it crushes something. It literally crushes the gas until it turns into basically a liquid. And why would it do that? Well, there's all spaces in between the molecules of the gas. What fills the spaces? That's the key. Because if the spaces are there, what's in the middle of those spaces? Why are they there? Why doesn't it just all become a liquid all by itself? Think about that for a second. All right, now that you thought about that, remember what we got here. We got a motor making this thing, crushing all this gas down until it becomes basically a liquid. Now, it flows this way up to what they call the evaporator. So here it is, basically a liquid, and it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And then it enters this evaporator. Now, this really does not look correct to me. This should be the evaporator. That shouldn't be there. This should go in and then come out. Okay? So it's coming into here and expanding. And it's leaving basically as a gas to come back to the compressor and be crushed again. Well, because it's in a small confined space, and then it enters a big space, it opens way up. And what fills those voids inside your refrigerator compartment is the electrons that are in there, the extra electrons. That is what heat is electrons. That's all heat is electrons moving into something causes it to get hotter. Leaving it causes it to get colder. That's exactly what happened. We crushed the particles, we crushed the gas, we forced the particles to leave, literally leave. That's why a compressor gets hot. And then at that point, the liquid is crushed. And when it comes down through here and it hits this open space, it pops open and all the electrons flood back in that were inside your refrigerator, that were the warmth. That's the warmth. They flood into this big space. And now it becomes a gas again. And then it goes down and gets compressed. And it goes in and pops up again, sucks all over it. And it's just a continuous cycle. That is what a refrigerator is. Now let's watch what they have to say here.
A compressor condenses a refrigerant, and an ether liquefied by the compressor is vaporized again as it passes through.
Now see, this is not correct. That should be in through this whole thing, because that's no expansion going on there. The evaporator has to be a bigger space to absorb the electrons, basically.
The refrigeration coils, absorbing the heat from its surroundings to make the inside of the refrigerator cold. History of the electronics industry that...
Okay, let's just look at this a little bit deeper. Okay, my outstandingly wonderful friends, Roger once again, Mudfossil University. And what am I going to be talking about today? I'm going to go down memory lane. And that memory lane is about the rejection that I received when I presented my mud fossils to Yale University and Harvard and all right down the line. 100%. 100% denial, dismissal, no looking whatsoever, because I was not in that venue. I could not present it and they could just tell me to go away. So I went onto social media. Now, Velikovsky had the same situation with him. However, he was a contemporary of Einstein. He knew Einstein. They discussed things, and they destroyed him in the media and so forth, and actually forced his books off the bookshelf because he was so against what they were, the nonsense that they're speaking. And the same thing I'm against is the nonsense they're speaking. I have the mud fossils. I have my goose, Caesar, right here. There's his feathers. And I know what's going on. I understand this now. And I understood it back then. I wrote this book, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. And it was called Mud Fossils, Velikovsky, and Minds in Collision. And that is the problem. Their minds cannot accept reality. And they're the ones that are telling you what you have to accept for reality. Don't accept it anymore. Stop. We can get out of this nonsense. This was years ago, and they destroyed me. Absolutely, every rule. I didn't want any money for the book. The book's free. I think it's free. They say 99 cents. I don't know. But anyway, I put this up, and I was totally against. Well, here, let me see. I'm just I had all this CAT scans and DNA tests and they were giants, and that's the problem. And they just came after me like you wouldn't believe. And I ended up with the academic bullies and book burners are about to be exposed in these pages. And now the fun begins. I wish he was here now, Immanuel Velikovsky. Now, let's look at what this is all about and why I was so upset. And I did a video at the same time. This was 6 years ago or so. I did the video. Hold on a second. Yeah, this was back 6 years ago, 2015 it's from. And I was really upset. Now, I don't know how nasty I got, but because I haven't listened to it in quite a long time. But I do remember I was pretty upset. I could tell you that. All right, here goes. All right, this is about Velikovsky and his theory, which was rejected violently. And this goes back to 1972. This is not recent, and it's still going on. Now listen to this. This is what we're up against. I need help.
Things about the pressure that the scientific and scholarly community brought to bear is that it succeeded.
Now, before we go any further, I just want to give you a real quick background of Velikovsky. He was a Jewish scholar, PhD, contemporary of Einstein. He was very, very brilliant mind, and he went to every place in the world. Literally, he went to South America and to all of Asia and everywhere, Japan, and he found out all the stories that were written in the past that related to this catastrophic event that happened to the Earth, and it was 3,500 years ago. Now, here's where the rub comes in. It relates to absolutely spectacular events that nobody could possibly believe would be true unless you really investigated it. And that's the problem. The academics just dismiss it, deny it, and walk away. That is the issue. They are not scientists, and they have not been scientists that I can find since the Age of Enlightenment, when they decided everybody else was wrong. Stop listening. Just forget them. Whatever we tell you, you repeat, or we fail you and destroy your life. That's what's happening now in academia. It's a disgrace. They are not fiduciary failures. I mean, they are fiduciary failures. They're not acting in the best interest of students, strictly on their own. They will not investigate anything, not a single thing that I have found. And I have found everything is wrong now. Literally everything that they are telling you theoretically is wrong. Every single bit of science now. And until they will address it, they are a disgrace. And I'm getting mad again now. So I'm just going to calm down. Now, they made him take his book off the bookshelves, the academics. And he was a contemporary of Einstein. He was no fool. And he had all the evidence, and every bit of it proved to be true. And now I have everything to support him that shows that it was all true. And I was destroyed for that. All right, so let's get back to what I originally put up about Velikovsky. Let me start over here. I come back to this stuff, is about and I can feel the emotions coming back. I'm telling you, I never expected, ever, in my wildest dreams, that the academics, the people that force you to pay them, to make them tell you what you have to say so you can succeed in life, and regardless if it's right or wrong, they could not care less. And it is, again, I better be quiet. Here goes. Velikovsky and his theory, which was rejected violently. And this goes back to 1972. This is not recent, and it's still going on. Now listen to this. This is what we're up against. I need help.
Things about the pressure that the scientific and scholarly community brought to bear is that it succeeded.
They destroyed them.
The book, The Worlds in Collision, then merely the first of the books, had been on the top of the bestseller list for something like 11 weeks. And nonetheless, the publisher was so mortally wounded, is the only word, by the turning away of salesmen from the doors of professors' studies and all of the implications that went with this, that the book was transferred to another publisher which was willing to take it over, which...
The only reason they took it over was they did not have a textbook
publishing.
Not only was the scientific press copying at him, and in a way that was violent, not in terms of an orderly discussion that this idea is yet to be tested and it takes more time and etc., but saying this idea is crazy and any man who has such an idea is mad, insane, that kind of thing. but the establishment through which men who think that way make a living, the academic establishment, was saying to this man, you know, you're not safe.
Now, here's the issue. The academics gang up on everybody. It's called peer review. It's actually racketeering, which means that they have control over the entire system. And they say, if you don't say what we tell you to say, we'll ruin your life. And they do. And they ruined his life. And they've ruined everything that I tried to do. And they ruined Tesla. And everybody that's tried to do something that is not within the box. And then they say, oh, you're not peer-reviewed, you're not this, you're not that, you haven't gone to Yale and Harvard and all this. If I went to Yale and Harvard, I would have to say exactly what they told me to say, or I would be destroyed and lose everything and be considered an idiot. So Velikovsky, I talk to people about Velikovsky today, they have no clue who he is. And the ones that do say, oh yeah, that's that jerk, he was an idiot, he was whoever could believe anything like that, he's a moron. And, you would have to, if you didn't investigate anything, you would think that. Yes, I agree. But until these people actually do some research, instead of just dismissalism, there's never ever going to be any intelligence. Because right now it just says, oh, no, you have to follow the science. Well, who's the science? The science is the guy that says what you have to believe. Well, what if I don't believe that? And what if I have evidence? Doesn't matter. You got to follow that guy, or we will never let you speak again. And that's what happened to me. That's what happened to Velikovsky. Of course, Velikovsky was in amongst Einstein, and nobody could stop him from speaking. But they could stop him from being heard. They just made him just get out of here. Don't forget him, and they turned him into an idiot. They destroyed him. Trust me. I followed this thing very carefully. And by the way, there's a guy called Greg J. who's been doing a lot of stuff on Velikovsky. I've been following his work, and he's very good. And somebody contacted me today and said, I got a hold of Greg, and he was, I guess they're talking about us doing some discussions, some chats online, and I would love that, because Velikovsky was my hero. I wrote the book about him. I think I showed you that, or I will. And it's an absolute disgrace, and it's really, actually, it's criminal, to be honest with you. I think right now there is capability to have criminal charges brought against academia for fiduciary failure, racketeering, intimidation. It's all part of the same package. You pay me or you don't get a job. When you pay me, I will tell you what you have to say. If you say what I don't tell you to say, I will fail you and destroy your life. That's intimidation. The first part is extortion. If you don't pay me, you're never going to get anywhere. I mean, basically, that's what they tell you now. You're not educated. So now you pay me, so I extort you. Then I intimidate you to say what I tell you to say, or I will destroy your life. And I'm not working in your interest. I'm working in my interest, because I don't want to look like a fool. And if you try to rise up against me after I have extorted you and intimidated you, I will send my racketeers out to destroy anything that anybody tries to rise up against me. So therefore, fiduciary failure, it's right down the line. So, again, until this ends, until they open up and create a forum, an open forum across academia that says, this is the academic open forum, and we will discuss any scientific issue you have here, and it will be open to everyone. Somehow that has to be enforced. I don't know how, but put it through me, because I'll make sure that it's enforced. I'm not going to let anybody not be heard. There's going to be crazy people. Yes, absolutely. Those people will be, people will laugh at them instantly. The people that aren't crazy, the people that show stuff like I show stuff, with the CAT scans and DNA and specimens and history and all of these things, I cannot be stopped anymore. Nobody in the Mudfossil movement can be stopped. Do not stand down. Kabish? Do not stand down. Stand up, or you stand for nothing.
Now, in the case of most of the young, being themselves, unhappily, is not...
Dr. Birnbaum, president of Staten Island Community College.
In the case of Velikovsky, there is something hard, and the cost of being himself has been very, very great. That is a condition to which I think the young profitably can be exposed. And if I had my way, every young undergraduate student in my college, every one, whether he's in the humanities or the hard sciences, would be required to examine the Velikovsky case. First, because the subject matter of what the man is standing for is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Secondly, because the subject matter is truly interdisciplinary. It's stretching.
That's the key. Velikovsky had all of the pieces in place, and I do too. I understand biology, chemistry, physics, history, whatever you got, electronics. Come to me, I'll discuss it. You go to one of these professors. Oh no, that's not, I don't know. I'm just a rock person, or I'm just a physics guy, and I just do this, and they have no clue about anything in between. I mean, absolutely nothing. The level of incompetence is absolutely stunning. Once again, I can't help myself. It's just after years and years and years. I knew about electron flood theory 50 years ago, and I confronted my professors. They tried to they did destroy me. But in that reign, I didn't care. I went out and started my own business, and I was very successful. I had no problems in life whatsoever. But I knew from that moment on, screw those people. They are only out to look like they know what they're doing. They draw a whole bunch of doodles on a board, and they say, oh, nobody can understand it, obviously. And then they pretend they understand it, so everybody thinks they're a genius. Time for this nonsense to stop is over. Okay, so back to my buddy here. He should have been in charge of all education. We need I gotta tell you the truth. The guy that is the Secretary of Education lives in the next town over from me. He won't respond. I tried to get a hold of him about this stuff. No response. No response from anybody. And that's right across the board. That's what I mean. This stuff has to stop. The Secretary of the Department of Education. You're supposed to be concerned about education, I would assume. No response. Anyway, here we go.
But third, because the human embodiment of the expression of the ideas, in a way, is symbolic of the problem the young think they are facing in this kind of a society, and which, in my opinion, they in fact are facing.
Intransigence.
Me.
He's right, because he will be fired if he started talking about
it. The condition is the extreme professionalization and rigidification of institutions through which thought is supposed to occur.
Bullies.
Extreme to the point where it begins to contaminate the fluidity and looseness, the freedom to think.
Contaminate? You cannot think. You come up with anything that opposes their dogma, you're dog poo.
Fluidity and looseness of ideas, of having ideas, and the freedom to think. And Velikovsky really wasn't taken on by the establishment simply because of what he was saying. He was also taken on by the establishment, in my opinion, because of his audacity in having such thoughts.
Exactly, and this has got to stop. Now, I'm presenting all my stuff, and it's very, very valid. Now, everybody should look up Velikovsky, because I think he's right, and I think I think he's exactly right, and I think my stuff. The only way I can see this preservation happen was from a flood, because otherwise it would have rotted away. This stuff is virtually pristine. Now, I've gotten some more information. Obviously, this is, like I say, 5 or 6 years ago, 2015. And so there's a lot more research has been done, and now I'm so fully understanding of the process and nucleophilic substitution and what actually did occur during this event. We almost collided with Venus. The Earth was literally burnt and boiled. The waters literally boiled, and we're going to be talking about this in these discussions about Velikovsky. We're going to go right through his books, and because this was history. This is a true history. If you don't learn this history, you're just lost. I'm telling you, this is what upsets me. They can make up anything they want and then force you to repeat it. That's just not right. None of it is complete. So anyway, I need help to present this. Otherwise, I'm only getting a handful of people even looking at it. So try to help me out. I'm going to put out my stuff, and it's going to be on the living universe, and I'm going to have a series of videos on it. And if you support me, maybe we can get this thing looked at somehow. But trust me, they are not going to look, and they have not looked, and they totally refuse to look. So if you try to help, maybe we can get it. Thanks. All right, I have a video here on Comet 67P and the mysterious features that are on there. And I believe, and I'm 99% certain, that now I'm 100% certain, this is biology as well. This is 2015. I was following the Russians, not the Russians, the European Space Agency. They sent what's called a Rosetta mission, and they had a lander that actually landed on this thing, sampled the particles. They're biology. they're iron oxides, which is blood, and then all of the other things that are in your body they have. And they just blown away by it. Plus, it's got muscle fibers, it's got tendons, it's got a tendon implant. Now, I don't know why I should bother going any further with this, because let me just get back out of here. Go past this about them. All right. Well, let's just see. Here we go. Everybody to do is to help me. Oh, I remember why I was going into this, because this was literally, Velikovsky wrote about the time when 3,500 years ago it was exactly. Well, not exactly, you know what I mean. But the Venus was shown to erupt from Jupiter as a fiery comet, and they said it rivaled the sun and lit up the cosmos. It was so bright. And I explain all of this stuff because now that it's all been confirmed, this is all true. And it's only 3,500 years ago. It wasn't even there. And so they were just, oh, this guy's insane. He's crazy. Well, it almost destroyed our planet and then did destroy Mars. And I have a lot of details now. After going deep, 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 and then I got deep, deep, deeper. So I don't know if we can get any deeper, but we're going to try. All right, listen to what he has to say, or what I had to say. Here goes. So if you try to help, maybe we can get it. Thanks. All right, I have a video here on Comet 67P and the mysterious features that are on there. And I believe, and I'm 99% certain, that, well, I'm 100% certain this is a product of life. And I have the evidence to support this, and I have it shown in this video. Now, what I'm going to ask everybody to do is to help me to distribute this, to get it out there. And I'm putting in a little video here that somebody else posted with excellent job, and it's about Velikovsky, he was destroyed for presenting this kind of stuff. Now, I don't care, because I have nothing to lose. But he did, and he's been destroyed. Now, the ETO-TV, and of course he's dead now. And this is what happens. And this guy ends up saying nobody will change and they will die before they change. And he's right. So we need to make them change, and I need your help. So that's what I'm hoping for. Thank you. And stay tuned for this Velikovsky clip. It's very, very short. Now, you should watch this whole thing. This guy was seriously maligned for... All right, here's the name of it. It was called Immanuel Velikovsky, Bonds of the Past. CBC documentary, 1972. That's when they were writing about how badly he was treated, and he's just totally forgotten in history. Well, my book will never, the book is written about him, and people are starting to talk about him now as a hero, which he was, and how badly he was treated. So. And he was maligned. Now he lost everything. He lost everything because he was one of the top guys, and they just destroyed him. Now they can't destroy him because I don't have anything to destroy. So I'm one of the few people who can do this and get away with, because I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not looking for any money. I'm not looking for any plaques or awards or status or anything. I just want reality, and I'd like to see the free energy, because that stuff there is really needs to be looked at. And again, same thing. Fermilabs told me directly, Don Lincoln from Fermilab, who I was going back and forth with, trying to get him to understand, he told me over and over, he said, I refuse to look at your stuff. I won't take 1 minute, he said. That was his exact words. I refuse to take 1 minute to look at anything you presented, because you are not peer reviewed. And you have to leave this to the pros. And I can do more than he can for a couple $100. They have spent literally, I would say, trillions of dollars. We could pay off half of our debt with what these people have pissed away in a continuously failure-oriented fiasco of phenomenal proportions. And that was Don Lincoln of Fermilab. And if Don Lincoln would like to discuss it, I am ready. And that is what it should be done as a government agency. To be able to take that attitude is a disgrace. For being a scientist, and that just is not right. They destroyed him.
And contaminating it, that will be unlivable here. It won't be able to live here if it's all contaminated with mold. We don't have flood insurance, Mom. We have only fire. I was wrong, yeah. So no flood and no wind insurance.
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna hopefully get back to work and make the repairs we have to make to live here. Yeah.
But right now, Crystal is also in the dark about whether she has a job. The restaurant where she and her daughter worked was badly damaged in the storm.
Just the batteries I've been buying has been draining my account. Batteries, changing the batteries for the flashlights, buying gasoline for the generator. All these little costs, so I'll save the receipts. And maybe FEMA will help, maybe not. But I have all my receipts saved to show them what I've been spending. I've been hearing a $500 check people have been getting.
But you don't know what you're getting.
No, ma'am.
And it won't be enough to cover the repairs of the house.
No, not if it's just that amount.
Do you feel forgotten about?
Oh, no. I have faith in the Lord, and I'm not forgotten. Mom and I aren't forgotten. My daughter, no. We have a lot more than other people. I'm thankful for what we have, because there's a lot worse off.
Resilience of folks in Louisiana, incredible. That was Jesse Mitchell reporting from Golden Meadow, Louisiana. Now, Jesse tells us that power did finally come back on for Crystal and her family just this week.
I know, but the unending misery...